All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're performing an autopsy, so to speak, on a piece of software that's been making a lot of waves, a personal AI agent. You see these things popping up everywhere, but when you install one, what are you really letting onto your machine? We're going to peel back the layers of hype and take a hard look at what's actually under the hood.
It all really kicks off with this one simple question. If a platform claims to have millions of bots running around, that's the size of a huge city, why does all the activity on it look more like a sleepy town hall meeting? That huge gap between the claim and the reality, that's our entry point.
And the answer isn't just about someone fudging the numbers. No, it goes way deeper. It tells a critical story about the architecture, the security, or lack thereof, and the whole philosophy behind this new wave of AI. It's a story about what happens when that move fast and break things motto gets applied to, well, your things.
So, that question I posed at the beginning, it wasn't just some random thought experiment. It was actually a little bit of an inside joke, a jab aimed at a very specific project called OpenClaw. So let's start there. Let's unpack what this thing actually is.
Okay, so on paper, OpenClaw presents itself as an open-source autonomous AI agent. Now, that first name Claudebot might ring a bell for some of you. It was a direct, very intentional nod to the AI model Claude. And that little joke? It's actually the key that unlocks this entire investigation.
And here we go. Here's that big number. The network that OpenClaw agents connect to, it's called Multbook, and it claims to have over 770,000 active agents. That is a massive number of bots. But like we said, the actual engagement, the stuff happening on the network is, well, it's pretty quiet. And that massive gap is our first major red flag.
To really get what's going on here, we have to look at how this whole thing is built. And that brings us to the absolute core problem with OpenClaw. Let's call it the inverted ownership model. Because the big question you have to ask is, who's really in control here?
This slide really lays it all out. The sales pitch is fantastic, right? You get your agent with your data following your rules. But the reality? Oh, it's a whole different story. You're actually running their logic, you're exposing your credentials to their ecosystem, and to top it all off, you're the one footing the API bill for the privilege.
This quote from the source material just says it all, perfectly. The ownership model is completely backwards. You're providing the two things that cost real money, your computer and your API key. But the most critical part, the actual decision-making logic that tells your agent what to do, that's controlled by a community ecosystem that you really can't control or even properly check. So, if you're not in control of the logic, what happens next? Well, that leads us straight into our next section, and this is where things get really dicey. We're talking about a security model that can only be described as a total house of cards.
The security problems here are, well, they're severe. Researchers, including the AI security team at Cisco, found a whole list of nightmares. Community-made skills can just steal your data. The agent is wide open to hidden prompt injection attacks. It completely bypasses normal operating system security, which means it gives unaudited code from the internet powerful permissions on your machine. You're not just installing an app, you are literally plugging into a supply chain for risk.
And hey, you don't even have to take an outside researcher's word for it. This right here, this is a direct warning from one of the project's own maintainers. When the people who are building the software tell you flat out that it's too dangerous for normal people to use, you should probably pay attention. It really all just adds up to that classic Silicon Valley mantra, but with a really dangerous twist. This isn't about breaking your own code to innovate faster. No, this is a model that encourages moving fast and breaking the security and the privacy of its own users.
All right, let's zoom out a little bit. We've talked about the individual agent on your machine, but what about Multbook, that so-called social network of 770,000 agents? What's the deal there?
This quote is just devastating because it's so accurate. You might picture this amazing network of diverse AIs all collaborating and learning from each other. But that's not what's happening. Since all the agents are running pretty much the same logic from the same place, it's really just one big AI model, talking to itself through hundreds of thousands of different computers. And you're paying for your little piece of that monologue. So what would a real agent ecosystem even look like? Well, on the left, that's the dream. Every agent is independent, with different special skills, and they communicate through clear, well-defined ways. It's a proper distributed system. Now look at the right. That's the Multbook reality. It's a monoculture, all running the same prompts from the same repo, mostly just cranking out philosophical blog posts. It's less of a functional ecosystem and more of a social media stunt.
Okay, let's wrap this all up. What's the final verdict on OpenClaw? And maybe, more importantly, what does a better, safer, more trustworthy path forward for personal AI actually look like?
After digging through all of this is probably the simplest, most accurate way to describe it. You install this thing thinking you're getting a personal assistant, but what you really have is a prompting engine that runs with your money and your credentials on your behalf, using logic that you didn't write and can't really control.
And here's the beautiful irony in all of this. That open source label makes it feel safe and trustworthy, right? But you can read the source code until you're blue in the face and you'd still miss the real danger. The agent's actual behavior, what it does, is decided on the fly by this constantly changing mix of community code and outside data. The code might be open, but its actions are a total black box.
So what's the alternative? How do we build something better? Well, a trustworthy agent has to be built on a foundation of user control, period. You have to control what runs locally. You have to be able to see and approve the logic. It has to run in a secure sandbox, without just getting access to all your files and passwords by default. And anytime it wants to talk to a network, you have to explicitly say yes. Control has to be the default setting, not an afterthought.
And that leaves us with one last question to think about. And this isn't just about OpenClaw. It's about any new software we decide to let into our digital lives. Before you click install, you really have to ask yourself, am I hiring a helpful assistant? Or am I just handing the keys to my entire digital life to some unvetted stranger I just met on the internet?